Alright, so we're back at the cab mounts today. A few things have changed. But today we're going to get the cab mounted for sure, I promise. After doing some more research and going over what a guy had planned in the metal that we cut last time, and talking to Beast Custom Works on Facebook, go check him out. He's doing the square body onto the new frames. He's got it kind of down to a science. Lots of pictures, pretty cool stuff. Made some changes to what we're going to do, and it's going to be raising up the cab a little bit for the mounts that we're making, so they're going to be a little bit higher. So those two pieces of metal that we cut right there are trash. So that's awesome. But this is what I come up with. This is what we're going to do now. So same as before, but we're going to start by making just kind of like a bridge out of a flat piece of 1/4 inch. Got the degrees you need to bend it at, all the lengths. That'll be pretty easy to hammer out. Drill the 2 holes in the top for the cab mounts. And then for the front cab mounts, we're going to make these pockets, or whatever you want to call them, with some rectangle tube. So it's going to look just like this. Those are the lengths. It's 2 inches high, 1.5 inch hole in the middle. I'll kind of give you a bit of a visual here. This is the tube I'm going to use, 3/16 wall. So we're going to cut that to length, about there, put our hole in the top, leave the bottom closed in, plate one side, and then it's going to be a trick, but what that Beast Custom Works recommended is he said use some threaded rod coming out the bottom of the cab, and as you set the cab down onto the mount, the thread rod will come through while this sitting on the inside. The thread rod will come through, you hold a nut under there, and then you tighten the nut up. It's a pain, but it's going to work, and it's going to work without cutting the frame at all, so I guess that's kind of important. We shouldn't touch that if we don't have to. I'll probably trim this guy down a little bit. This is energy suspension bushings. I think they're a little bit bigger than factory, I'm not even sure. But I'm going to trim off maybe 1/2 inch off the bottom of it. It'll still work just fine. No worries there. Okay, so I'm going to get all the steel laid out here and get everything ready to bend up and cut and drill. And while I'm doing that, you guys can watch me yank the truck off the trailer, because that was a bit of a task and it only fell off once. All right, I'll see you in a bit. Okay, so no lie, that literally took me over an hour to get that thing off the trailer. I just fast forwarded it that much. But anyways, let's get our lines marked on this metal, where our bends are going to be, where our 2 holes are going to be for the cab mount. Of course, I'm measuring everything out from a center line. I'm drilling a couple pilot holes for our cab mounts to make them easier for the hole saws later. And then I'm going to get this thing positioned up, and I'm going to use the ancient method of jiu-jitsu metal bending to get this thing bent up and just the shape we need it to be. All right. Okay, so here's our bridge mounted up. I drilled those 2 holes in the top first because it's easier to measure everything when it's flat, to get my center point, and then 12 inches out on each side for those rear cab mounts. So our rear cab mount height is 10 inches off the frame, and then our front cab mounts are going to be 2 inches off the frame. And that should give us a level cab frame. If it's off a little bit, that's no big deal. We'll just shim it up and make it straight. But so there's that mounted. Once we get it welded on there, we're going to take some 2-inch flat bar, 1/4 inch thick, just kind of gusset it in, front and back. That'll be plenty strong enough for that. All right, let's get started on those front cab mounts. Okay, I'm using a 1 3/8 hole saw 1 3/8 hole saw for the cab mounts. Don't quote me on this. I'm sure the factory ones are the same size. You might have to touch up the hole after you get that to fit in, but it should fit inside of the 1 3/8. Okay, so obviously I'll lop this one off and cut that one off there. Make a couple little backing plates for them, and the way that I measured this distance here and this distance here is I can have a little overhang, and those should just tuck right against the inside of the frame rails in the truck, and then should be the right width. We'll go double check our measurements when we get out to the truck, make sure everything's good, and I'll tell you guys what those measurements are so you know for yourself. But let me get this cut off. We'll drill some holes in the bridge part, and then I might need to go try find some metal to reinforce that bridge before we want to stick it under there. It's kind of flimsy, but we will see. So that gives you an idea what they're going to look like. Of course, they're going to be separated, but we'll weld this flat one to this one, this flat one to this one, and then but hanging down, and then be able to set them on top of the frame rail and just move them out to each side, and then it'll give it a little more support, a little more strength, and it'll make it easy to locate them on the frame. We'll just have to find our front to back where it goes, and then the width will already be taken care of. There we have it. We'll sit in there nice. It's a little flimsy, so we're probably going to want to plate it in, or gusset it in before a guy gets any weight on it from the cab. But let's go mock everything up, make sure it all fits good before we start welding anything, just in case you got to tweak it or bend it a little. I don't know, who knows. So I'm going to weld these guys up. We'll get a few welds on these, and then we're going to head outside and get the cab straight. Get these bolted in place, at least we can do that. Get them set down, we can probably even tack them. We'll see what that looks like. And before we know it, we're gonna have the cab on this thing. Alright, still gotta cut this here original cab mount off. But I went back and double checked my measurements from this cab mount to the center line, and that paper I printed off from the internet was totally wrong. It was off by about 6 inches. And you'll see some marks here. I actually did weld these in over here and mocked it up, and it wasn't right. So I ended up having to move everything back about 6 inches from this center line of this cab mount to the center line of this, 6 inches back. Now when I measure the center of the new cab mount to our center line of the axle, I was kind of using top ball joint. Pretty close. Now it's correct. You can see the side of it there. Original cab mount lopped off there, and everything's tacked in place. So I'm going to put the cab mounts back in, the insides. Had to move those brake lines out of my way. So I'm going to get the cab jug forward again, get everything back in place, lock that fender back up, and then I'll come back with a video and see what that looks like. But it was way too far forward before. So that was not correct. It needed to be about 6 inches back from this front mount, center to center, And this is 2 inches high, and our back should be about 10 inches high. So if you're looking for measurements, do it yourself. That's what's looking right. But I'll get it drug forward here, get the fender on, see what it looks like, then we'll know for sure. Alright, there's one side done. Wasn't too bad to get the knot on the bottom. And that's how she looks. Just gotta tighten her up. I'll go put the other side in, and then we can look at the back. Okay, I got the rear mount mocked up in here so you can kind of see what it's going for. Of course, we're going to gusset it in. I'm just going to run like 2 or 3 inch flat bar on each side of it, all the way over to the other side. So I'm just going to measure it. We're going to get it straight, centered on the rails. Get the height the same from each frame rail. And I think I'm going to go ahead and weld it in and then just see how strong it is sitting here. It's probably going to flex a bit. Probably won't be able to leave all the weight on it, but we'll see. So I'll get that done, and then the cab's going to be pretty well where it's going to stay. Alright, I just ended up running a bead on each side of it. Everything looks good. Measured it centered, measured the heights the same. That side is off by 1/8 of an inch. So washers are missing here, and the pucks aren't squished all the way. That side looks like it might be squished a little bit more, and that could be why it's off 1/8 of an inch. So I just gotta remember that. These are not brand new mounts. They were sitting under a cab for a few years on another truck, so actually on this cab on a different frame. So everything looks good. It's under its own weight, so it's going to be strong, especially once we gusset it in there. It's going to be as strong as it needs to be. So 2 inches up in the front for cab mounts and 10 inches in the back, and you can see it does show a bit of frame. For this truck, I don't care about that. If I was going for a lowered truck, then I would be worried about it. But for this one, I want to put 35-inch tires on it, so this is going to help with that without having to really lift it at all. I'm just going to build some custom steps when I build the back deck and the front bumper. I'll build steps to mount that, or match them. So that'll cover that frame and be pretty good. Okay, so I'm going to maybe do a little bit of finish welding before it gets dark. Maybe mock some fenders up. So that's probably going to be it for this video. Yeah, next time you see this thing, we'll be dropping the motor in it. Catch you later.